right, welcome to Reptile Fight Club. I am Justin Julander, your host, and with me as always is your other host, Chuck Bull.
What's up for the downstroke, folks?
Oh, all right.
There you go.
Well, how are you doing, my friend? How was life?
I am well. I'm swimming in the big ocean like everybody else. But work's been super tough. Got a lot of stuff going. So glad we finally had a chance to sit down and do a fight club. Feel like it seems like it's been a minute since we recorded one. So good to be here. Good to do that. Got my butt onto NPR, so that should be coming out. Had an amazing time with those guys. Yeah. So that was super fun. Excited to see how that gets received. We had great discussion. Fun with those guys. And Bob Rock was on there. It was a crew. So
nice. Yeah.
All
three of them. So Eric, Owen, and
yep,
Bob.
and Bob. Yep, and Rob. I called him Bob in the interview, and I'm just like, it's natural. It's Bob Rock. Like it's so fun.
Yeah,
I'm like, it's Rob.
I think he answers to a lot of things.
Yeah, no, it's good, dude. I love Rob. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah. He's a great guy.
Yeah, for sure.
He's very kind of laid back and easygoing. It's a lot of
smart
fun.
Smart as a whip, and he's got. I mean, he's locked on, dude. Just locked on.
He is an intense herper too. It's awesome.
That's
like
awesome.
He's right down my alley. Like, yeah.
And that's so funny because I catch that so laid back side of him, but I totally could see that dynamite of a herper in him, like him come to life, and going crazy.
When you find a snake, he gets pumped. It's great. Awesome. Yeah, awesome. I love the enthusiasm. Yeah, he's just a brilliant guy too. So okay, enough praise for Bob Rock, for Rob Stone. Even though he deserves it, but we'll
absolutely.
I think it's been pretty crazy around here too, just doing our thing. But yeah, it's hitting the slopes.
I was gonna say you've gotten some slopes time in.
You're a little bit, but the snow's kind of getting crappy. It hasn't really snowed much lately, so that's kind of a bummer. But I guess we're not here to talk about skiing, and
nobody wants to hear about that. Yeah.
Let's move on to reptile topics. Yeah.
Okay.
So with Adeline's interview, I got excited about doing some art. So I got one of the iPad pencils or whatever, and started doing some digital art, and it's working out pretty well. I'm pretty happy with the way it's going. So
are we ascended to the level of creating us a new logo and all that, or what's going on? Stickers, shirts. That at all, we got to start marketing here, Justin.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm mostly just working on a project for. I don't know what, I'm trying to have something come out at the same time as the book, just for fun, kind of a carpet themed thing. So
that's
I don't know if you can see that, but yeah. So
wow,
these are some of the ones I've done so far. So I've got
Jesus, man.
So just
that's good.
Thanks. I'm not done really with the bread lie there yet, but in process.
That is looking amazing.
So hopefully I'll have it done to be able to, maybe do some kind of cool poster or something when the book is released. So I don't know. We've still got a little time with the book. I think I don't know how, printing's going to go. I mean, we're pretty much wrapped up. We're doing the final checks. We got Warren's section, so that's been nice. And to see kind of the, that genetic analysis that he did and had his kind of spiel in there. That was really good. And he's got a couple sections in the book, which is nice. And then we've got, we're just going through the layouts now, looking for mistakes and working with Russ Gurley on that. So that's been a lot. And Russ is a great guy. He's really good to work with. And so that's been a good process, but man, it sure is nice to see this thing coming together. See all the photos in there. It's exciting.
Did you say you've gotten any chapters back yet?
Oh yeah. Most of the book we've gotten.
Most of the book's done.
Yeah, I think just all we haven't seen is just kind of the second part of the morph section. But oh my gosh, that morph section is huge. It's a behemoth. Crazy. Yeah. It's gonna be like a So
it's
it
like
looked like It looks like the book's gonna be about 650 pages, so it's gonna be a quite a good sized, book here, so, I'm really excited to hold this thing in my hands, though. It's gonna be fun, but, yeah, we've got, just going through the layouts and getting everything approved until we can send it off to the printers, get kinda that, blue line, and then who knows with COVID, but I am anticipating it's probably gonna be delayed, so hopefully we'll see it
Yeah.
late spring, early summer, but that might be a pipe dream. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Really? You think it'll be fall winter or
I hope not. I mean, I don't want to wait that long, but
yeah.
we'll see. Who can say what these days
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
how fast things are going to come out of China, but you know, what do you do? We'll
Well,
see how it goes.
it's hilarious that all of our Metcal and stuff like calibrated items, torque
Mhm.
wrenches, PME, precision measuring stuff that we
Yeah.
have for work, we are sending it all to Japan because we
Mm.
cannot get it done in house. So,
Oh, really?
and we're getting it back much much faster. So, I
Oh,
think if our torque wrenches can do it, so can your book.
yeah. Well, we'll see what happens, but hopefully sooner than later we will have
Yeah.
the second edition of the complete, or I guess we're calling it the more complete carpet python, but that should be done hopefully very within a few months, but
Yeah.
we'll have
Yeah.
everything done and off to the printers within the month, I think.
Sick.
Um yeah.
Sick. Well,
But
that's a load off of you at least.
that's a it's a I mean, okay, so the first edition was about half
I
that
mean, not
size.
that you're not ready to start writing another book already,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
So,
yeah, I mean,
whatever.
we're a little into the next one, but,
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically a new book. We pretty much rewrote probably 75-80% of the stuff that was in the first edition,
Mhm.
added, a ton of information and pages. I mean, the it's double the size of the first edition, and I mean, I'm really excited because there's all wild individuals in the species chapter for the most part. I mean, there's like maybe two or three that are captive specimens. You like, for example, like the rough scale python. We didn't have any photos of wild rough scale pythons displaying, their big teeth
Mhm.
and stuff. So we used the pictures that I got at Reptile Gardens from Terry. He had his display for me, and I got some, okay shots of those and put those so you can see the teeth and you can see the display in the chapter. But yeah, we've added an Owen Pelly chapter, so that'll be cool.
Mhm.
Such cool snakes, and then the we added a chapter on herping. So getting
Cool.
out and finding carpets in the
Australian
wild.
herping or I mean,
Yeah,
is this
I mean,
all
just
I
some of
mean, I
it's
would
general, like, but most, it's there's some specific stuff for finding carpet pythons, but it's kind of more of a general kind of
you
intro to herping type thing,
you
so
you have a whole section on diming out Aussie spots for
yeah, right.
finding carpet pythons?
Put a
Oh,
bunch of
they would
yeah, put a bunch of
love you.
locality, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
GPS coordinates. No,
you
we
come
don't
back
do
and there
any of
would
that.
be your face with a wanted poster would be
Yeah,
plastered up
exactly.
all over Australia, dude.
Well, the first edition when it came out, they were kind of touting that as like a smuggler's list of all the stuff that it was kind of there was a little bit of a
Really?
weird backhanded comment in one of the reviews of the book, like it's a list of all the stuff that is going to be smuggled in the next 10 years or something. But and I mean, obviously some were, and
Yeah.
both ways. Some of the Australian stuff made it over across the pond, and some of the European
But
or
clearly
American stuff made it
clearly
over there. But
clearly Nick Mutton and Justin Julender have all the control of what is being
yeah, exactly.
moving across
And
ponds.
they
Like,
wouldn't know about it without our book,
yeah,
I'm sure. It's not
exactly,
all over the
exactly.
internet, and they don't already know about it. Yeah,
Clearly why the
it's just
authorities
goofy.
searched you leaving Australia that one
Yeah,
time.
I mean, we shouldn't write any books or have any knowledge because that would just lead to bad things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's frustrating. And I don't know, going through Australian customs, I've gotten pulled aside several
That's
times. Like,
that's right.
yeah, the last time I'm like, "Hey, you're profiling me." He didn't like that much, but yeah, it was a little weird. But I'm like, "Yeah, check my bags, check my stuff, check whatever. I'm just here to look at your wildlife. I don't know why you're hassling me and wasting my time."
I don't have it. Just be like, I don't have it in my bag. Wink, wink. Just
Yeah,
that you'd never make your flight.
I
They
didn't
had you
store
in
it
there.
in my friend's rectum.
Oh my
You
god.
better check.
Oh man, your friend would
Uh,
never forgive
yeah.
you for that.
Nobody's
Were
gonna
you
go to
there with
Australia with
Steve?
me now. Yeah, I went with Steve Sharp.
Yeah, his
Mike.
butthole would be over you forever, dude.
Yeah. He went through a different airport, so that was, and he got singled out too.
Yeah,
So,
see?
they
Dude, and if they were looking for you like that, all you'd have to do is mention his butthole and that would be the end of it.
oh
It
man,
would be
yeah,
the
I
end
don't
of it.
think he'd forgive me for that one.
I wouldn't. I
Yeah.
wouldn't. Yeah.
Well, yeah, good times. But yeah, it's gonna be nice to have this wrapped up and hopefully out to everybody soon. Um,
Mhm.
I'm excited to see it done. Have I
Yeah.
said that enough? Have I
Yeah.
expressed my excitement for this stuff? But yeah, it's a brand new book pretty much. So hopefully, everybody enjoys it. It's not like the traditional second edition where they add a new couple photos and, add a sentence or two. This is like
Yeah.
major overhaul, lots of new information.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm excited for the plus size carpet book.
yeah,
So,
well, it'll hopefully it'll be well received, and the effort and work will be appreciated. I'm sure there will be some detractors. I'm sure I got a call from a he who shall not be named. Yeah, I, I hesitate to even mention on here. I don't want to give any airtime, but yeah, that was an interesting conversation. But yeah,
as they
yeah,
usually are, I'm sure.
yeah. Apparently,
Yeah.
our podcast really sucks, so that's fun.
He
I
li-
appreciate the news.
he obviously
Sorry,
listened
listeners,
to it
we
enough
suck. What
to
do you
form an
do?
opinion, so
Yep, yeah, we're terrible. All this
uh,
banter is just obnoxious to
our bad
certain
press is
people,
still press.
I guess. Hey, which leads us into our topic today. All right.
Booch.
Way to go, Chuck. I mean,
Yep.
you're just seamless, seamless.
Segway Chuck, man.
Yeah, there we go. All right. Well, today we're talking about shady business or sketchy business practices. So, um, can they be useful? Can they be helpful? Can they annoy the crap out of you? We're going to talk about the pros and cons of shady business practices. So,
My name is.
chicka chicka, business shady.
Yeah.
Okay, good one. We might have. I guess we don't have to pay for it. We didn't sing that much of it. Right?
Yeah, well,
Don't you get like 16 seconds of a song before you have to pay?
I don't
You,
know.
you better find the real one. Play a little
It's
clip of
it
that.
is it was so broken up and so bad. I can't possibly owe anybody money
Yeah.
for that.
They're gonna have a hard time knowing what
Yeah.
song that was,
No,
right?
yeah.
They're not gonna have a case against us.
Yeah. And we broke it up, so we were the band formerly known as, and we're no longer together, so
There you go.
I don't know.
Well, we've got some good guests lined up for the next couple rounds too. So look forward to a couple fun shows coming up. So
Just won't be us.
yeah, you won't have to listen to us for a couple weeks. But I don't know. We haven't really done a just us show for a bit either. So this has been,
No, I
I
guess
guess, a couple
not.
episodes,
Yeah, a
maybe.
couple episodes. I mean,
Yeah,
do we really go that far from just me and
yeah,
you, buddy?
that's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
getting back to the classic, right?
Yep.
All right. Well, are you feeling lucky today, or?
Whoo, I don't know. We talked about oh yeah. Well, I don't know. We'll see. Let's see.
Yeah.
I got
You
I
won
got
last time, so
I know.
yeah,
We'll see.
we'll see if it carries over. Okay, call it in the air. Here you go.
Tails.
Oh, tails! It is.
That's what
Lightning
I'm
strikes
fucking
twice.
talking about.
Man,
That's what I'm
2022
talking
is your
about.
year.
I'm talking about.
I guess I'm just the unlucky one for the next year, right? Well, what do you want? Do you want shady business practices are good, or shady business practices are not so good?
I'm so on the con side of this.
Okay.
I hate the shady.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that'll be fun to promote or give the pros
Yeah.
of shady business practices.
Make
All
you
right.
work for this one, I
Hey,
suppose.
I'm up to the challenge, my
I
friend.
know you are.
I'm
I
gonna
know you
kick.
are.
I'm gonna wipe your. Okay. Anyway, all right,
Whoa.
here we go. um, and of course, this is a formality, so I already know the answer. But would you like to go first, or would you like to have me go
Uh, y- you know me so well.
first?
I shall let you strut us out of the gate.
All right, age before beauty. Here we go.
That's correct.
Um, so how can shady or sketchy business practices be a pro? I guess I think the reptile industry has had a lot of shade in their past, a lot of
Mhm.
sketchy things going on in the past,
In their present.
in the present too. Yes, okay.
You just don't you know the past so much more,
Yeah,
but
yeah. Well, and it's easy to talk about the past because some players are not in the game anymore, so they're
yeah,
easy to talk about. But
yeah,
I guess, of course, the old Hank Molt comes to mind. Man,
yeah.
that guy was sketchy and shady as they come. Going to extremes of like making uh, documents, fake documents, to show that he was some representative of the United States coming to New Guinea to give the president an award or something, and working it so he could bring back Boland's pythons and all sorts of crazy rare things, right? Just nuts. I mean, he was smuggling in stuff from Australia, and maybe some of the things we have in captivity today are a direct result of that. So I guess in some way we might benefit from some of those sketchy practices from the past where those animals maybe went to a good place and were reproduced. And I mean, a ton of zoos were clambering over getting animals from Hank Molt, and they got kind of a black eye. And well, this is kind of a point for you, but to this day they don't like to work with the public sector because of that,
Mhm.
because of things like that. Ruined it for them, and some of the zoos got in a lot of trouble, and some zoos are very, very picky about even dealing at all with anybody from the public, and others are a little less stringent, I suppose. But so I think I'm never going to smuggle anything. I'm never going to be involved in that kind of illegal activity. But it's hard to fault when
At
there's
least not at the
no.
ground level, right? I mean,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
something's over and it's here and it's been reproduced and,
Exactly.
I
Yeah,
mean,
then it's kinda, like, hard to say, "Well, this is bad," because
for
it's being
goodness sake, we
captive
all might
bred.
have yeah, I mean, we all
Yeah.
might have a hand
Oh,
in
I'm
that if that
sure
was
I'm
the
sure
case,
everybody has the
Yeah.
fruits of ill-gotten
Yeah,
goods or
somebody's
ill-gotten labors.
ill-gotten
Yeah.
labors, yes,
But I
exactly.
guess I could see. I hate to say that as a pro, but
Yeah.
liking
Well, I
Australian
mean,
reptiles, I mean, it gives me the opportunity to work with some species that I'd really want to work with. I mean, they've already come out of the wild. They're already being reproduced
yeah,
in Europe or over in the United States or whatever. And they're here. I guess it's hard to find too much fault with that, but I know a friend of mine was involved with some smuggling back in the day, and I mean the reason he did that was because he saw like a farmer chop up a python because it was in his field, and he's like, they don't appreciate their animal. And this was 40 years ago, 30 years ago, or whatever, so a long time ago. But he's like, they didn't appreciate them. Why should I worry about keeping their laws? So
sure,
he
sure.
sent some stuff
Uh,
back to the United
there
States, and
there ru
that's,
there are rules and there are laws, but they're dumb ones, so
yeah.
screw it, right?
And when there's no legitimate way, for a hobbyist to do things, you got to expect that,
Sure.
that stuff's going to go down because, the demand is there and people are going to pay the price and pay money for it. So I don't know. And it's hard, I don't think our government should be spending effort and tax dollars enforcing Australian law, but what do you do?
Right.
I bought a pair of Phylloris amnicola, the riverine leaf-tailed geckos at
Mhm.
Tinley, from my friend Nathan Hall. And I mean, when I went to Tinley,
Wait,
like,
did you oh, this is when you went to Tinley.
yeah, when I gave the
Okay.
gecko talk, yep.
Okay, okay, okay.
And
I was
so
like, "Wow, you"
yeah, I had I shipped some animals to myself because Nathan gave me some space at his table.
Gotcha.
He's such a cool guy.
Yeah.
I can't speak highly, high enough of Nathan Hall. But anyway, he gave me some space at his table, had me speak at the symposium. I mean, it was a great time. Put me up in a room there for the Tinley show, so it was a lot of fun. But anyway, one of the most common species of Australian geckos at the show was the riverine leaf-tailed gecko, Phylurus amnicola. And so I'm like, oh, there's a ton of them here, and they're not, unreasonably priced. And so I got a pair of them and came home with those. And I posted some pictures, and some of my Australian friends were like, "Oh, well, I'm glad you get to have those. Way to go, way to benefit from smuggling." And I'm like, I didn't smuggle them, and they're the most captive bred leaf tail gecko at the show. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think the wild populations are hurting as a result of this. I mean, at least now that they're captive bred, and nobody is ever going to smuggle those again
Yeah.
because there's no incentive to, because they're
Right.
already captive bred over here. And that's the same thing I told um, the inspectors at the border. Like, anything that, pretty much I want to work with, I can probably find already captive bred in the US. So I don't
Mhm.
need to smuggle your animals. And why would I want to bring in a bunch of parasitized wild caught, snakes when I can buy captive bred for, no risk and for a lot less price. So
Yeah.
anyway, that was a very long-winded initial statement on the
Yes, you
pros
digressed.
of
You
sketchy practices.
you
Yeah.
digressed. So, let me please
Can you follow
retort.
that? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give you a
I
second.
mean, yeah, I think you did a good segue in of just like the con of, that, and um I recently just talked about Bull and I, and
Mhm.
kind of I look at that, you know just exorbitant price that importers are getting now for Bull and I, that
Yeah.
it's completely fabricated at that level. And there's, sketchy's examples at best of stuff that might be captive hatch, but probably is wild collected and funneled through as at least at minimum captive hatch, if they're not straight out lying about captive bred.
Yeah.
And it kind of just goes to, I mean, you can listen to the interview, but I feel like, um that high price, it's getting, yeah, people will pay that, some people will pay that, but maybe not the right people. Maybe we won't ever be able to establish them properly, and eventually, after paying all this money and not having success and animals dying off, people are like, screw this, like, we're not going to do it. And it's just a waste. It's a waste of time, a waste of opportunity, just because people want to make some, they see the opportunity for money, and rather than, and they just gouge and gouge and gouge. And it's like, it's just, it's so far past, I believe obscene was the word that Rob Stone used. So I
Mhm.
mean, I just think that, the opportunity around getting Bull and I here, and getting them established and being able to breed them, and they're never probably going to be bred in these, record ball python numbers or something like that. they're
Yeah.
they're too tough to breed, but so they'll always command a higher price. But get them in here, get them established, where there's so crazy money right now that only some people can afford them, and maybe those aren't the best people to be breeding them. Maybe they are. Maybe I'm totally full of shit, but I don't think so. And I just think you can see how, like, in that situation, the greater community and the greater, captive keeping reptile community would suffer from that. And it's just, we're just so, people are like, well, yeah, things cost money, and these are animals that people want, and so we charge money. But it's just shitty, and it's just an ugly face on reptile keeping, and an easy way, an easy target for people to say, see, look at that, gross,
Mhm.
disgusting, look at that, and
Mhm.
I think that's a, kind of the easy, you were talking about Hank Moulton reaching back, but I mean, right here today, right as we speak, that's an example of kind of the ugliness that's happening around today. So, same shit, different day, apparently.
Yeah,
um
I mean, I guess, I'll give you that. Putting a high price tag on a snake probably increases the demand in some ways, at least maybe for the people catching the snakes, because they oh,
Well,
these are worth a lot of
and
money. People are gonna
and it
go.
de-incentivizes people to work together, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you're profitizing. I don't know if that's really even a word, but you're monetizing
yeah.
an animal as a commodity, and you're getting absorbent money for it. And oh well, is because there's demand. Okay, great. But at the same time, you're the more you do that, the more you push towards the profit side of it, the further away you get from the the captive population side of it, and the setting up of a group that can successfully establish, share, breed, and propagate the species here in the United States.
Potentially. I mean, we've talked about high priced animals and kind of the pros and cons of that, and maybe this has been brought up, but I mean, maybe the people that can afford them can also afford a very nice setup and good space for them. I see quite a few maybe people that are going to give them the space they need, and maybe that's the key. Maybe they need a giant space to
Big,
do well.
wide open space.
I don't know, maybe that's part of it. So maybe these people that can shell out 20 grand for a pair of snakes can also shell out 20 grand for a giant enclosure that has, the same humidity and temperature and rainfall of New Guinea, and give them what they need. Whereas if, somebody can barely afford the snakes, we have kind of a bad track record in the reptile industry of like, buying spending a lot of money on the animal and maybe not so much on the enclosures, or stick them in a rack drawer or something, and try to get it to work because it works with ball pythons or something. Anyway, I could see, some that being a pro, if they've got the money to afford a snake, that they could also maybe set it up properly. And I have seen a few examples of that with Bull and I specifically.
Uh-huh.
We talked to um um now, yeah, I'm so terrible with names. I don't know why I even try to bring up a name, but ball python breeder that just got a pair of bull and I and setting them up in a big nice cage
Justin
with
Kabilkis.
Justin Kabilka. Yeah, thank you. He has
I
the
can't
same
say
name
his
as
last.
me
I
and I
can't
can't
say
even
his
remember
last.
his name.
I can't say his last name correctly still,
Yeah,
but
I
I at least
I'm
know who the hell you're talking about.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's a factor of having 5 children. I try to yell at my kids and I can't
you
get the name right,
the
Yeah,
mental
yeah,
deterioration is
yeah, I have to go
slow,
through
and
each of their yeah,
yeah.
yeah, something's wrong
My
with me, but
mom, my mom does that to this day.
oh,
Like
yeah,
the
yeah.
dogs, all the pets, like,
Oh,
and
yeah,
she will
yeah.
roll through. Like we're not even. Yeah, we change species like it's crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, forgive me, Justin, for getting getting such a great named person, for getting their name. But anyway, I mean, he has been very successful in his breeding and marketing and doing all that stuff. And he's putting together a very nice cage, having somebody that like Casey Cannon that probably has really good knowledge about that kind of thing and has, thought about it a lot and is setting up something that hopefully will be very successful for those snakes and potentially allowing them to breed and that kind of thing. So you know I think there could be a con or a pro to having these things being exorbitant priced, but I do see the con in promoting their collection, illegal collection from the wild, when they probably shouldn't be collected, or exceeding quotas to try to get more money, and you can't fault the locals for that. Like if these crazy white people are going to pay that much for a snake, then maybe they should capitalize on that. But you hate to see it uh, do damage to the wild populations. But I don't know. They're in a pretty remote area. It's very difficult to go out and poach those, I would imagine. So it's probably not going to be an issue unless the locals just go hog wild and start collecting all of them from.
Hmm.
And I hopefully that doesn't happen as long as the native people of Papua New Guinea will maintain their reverence for those snakes and that kind of thing. But anyway, um, so uh, that sketchy type of business, I guess that would potentially fall into that, but I could also see that benefiting the animals in some way that the people get them in their hands and could do a little better with them as far
Yeah,
as
but so
giving them
you don't think,
appropriate
but
treatment.
you don't think the justification. So like okay, let's run this out. Like,
Mhm.
all right, so I am an importer of Bolanai and I'm making all this money hand over fist, and I can get these animals to a guy like Justin Kabilka who can offer them these huge cages and all of this exorbitant things that enhance the animal's life, blah 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 blah. uh, don't you think that some of that could potentially, it almost reinforces a shady business practice, because who says that Bull and I need these giant absorbent cages, and that, I mean, I'm not saying that you can't give it to them. I'm not saying that, the San Diego Zoo didn't have one of those corner, penthouse suites for their
Mhm.
Bolanai, and that they have multiple animals moving around. Cool. I'm not saying that, but there are people who, as part of their business practice, will shame you by saying, "Oh, if you don't keep that animal in a gigantic enclosure, you're performing animal cruelty, and that's wrong, or you better keep it naturalistic, or you better test all your animals, or else you're a shit person and a bad human being." That's another form of sketchy business practice, where
Mhm.
you take kind of a higher than thou approach to something that honestly you don't fucking understand. You
Mm.
don't understand. I mean, I look, you can't tell me that nervous, snakes need these big wide open spaces. Yes, if you want to do it that way, you stick them out in the wild, right? You never bring them in. But if
Mhm.
if you want to bring them in and you want to reproduce them and you want to do that, sometimes maybe these giant big wide open cages and all the money in the world that you throw at it isn't going to be what reproduces that animal. And if that's really the goal, if what we're doing is, if what we're doing is just trying to make more, more snakes so we can get wealthy off of it, cool, then whatever, none of it matters. But if it's that reinforced sketchiness of like, well, I have to do all this big grandioso thing so I can reproduce these and make tons of money, then that idea of like, oh, having them in big cages and spending tons of money and all of these things are almost shaming to people who do understand that maybe that's not the trick to the animal, or maybe that's not the most important thing, but that you're almost anthropomorphizing what you feel is humane or what you feel is correct. Because what's the first thing that animal might do when you stick it in a giant enclosure? Might find the tiniest, smallest, safest place in that enclosure and go stuff itself in there and hide, because it's like, whoa, this is flipping me out, right? So I think there's an other side, there's another argument to that, but more deeper to my point is, you have all these people who through their kind of higher than thou opinion about stuff, do what I would almost consider a shady business practice. So like an example, I heard what's that cat's name? I don't, it was Elijah or some shit like that. But
Mhm.
he was on a podcast and
Mhm.
he was shitting on Travis Wyman for the interview he did with Justin and those guys,
Mhm.
regarding Nido testing. And he would kind of just snipe at Travis. Like he basically made him out to sound like a joke PhD, like that his doctorate, like that, his doctorate was invalid, and that
Mhm.
he did, he was against testing, and it was absolutely, just it was first off, it was almost just character assassination, but he was completely mischaracterizing the things that Travis said. And look, I understand that testing is a good thing. It is a good thing, but through the discussion that we had on Reptile Fight Club and through the discussion that they had, that there was some clear um, issues or things to kind of overcome. And to listen to this guy crap on Travis Wyman and kind of try to make Travis seem like he wasn't, didn't know what he was talking about, and that he was kind of a fake PhD almost,
Mhm.
because he was dropping the complications around everyone should just test, and everything should be tested and it should be fine. It doesn't, no, there should be no excuse. And if you give an excuse, then you don't care about the health and welfare of animals. And it's completely ridiculous to marginalize anybody who brings scientific fact. And the worst part about it was, when you listen to this dude, he was a smart dude. Now, if you're a stupid fuck and you don't know any better, I get it. I understand people who just don't know any better and they go with the tagline because they don't understand the science behind it, or
Sure.
the
Yeah.
nuance of it or whatever. But when you know better and you do that, that's the same sketchy business practice as selling an animal for high price or smuggling or whatever, because you're trying to push your agenda in a disingenuous way, and you're
Mhm.
trying to marginalize people who are credible, who have worked very hard and are very intelligent and know what they're talking about. And
Yeah.
it's not, that's horrible for the
Mhm.
community. That's horrible for the reptile keeper at large to hear that. And I think if you have half a head in your skull, you hear that guy and you're like, all right, that's obviously a personal issue. And if you listen to the way he talks, you're kind of like, all right, he is not, I mean, if you were to listen to all of those podcasts, you would clearly see that he's sniping on the things that Travis said, and he's not representing what Travis's point was at all.
Mhm.
Travis is very much protesting, but Travis also wants to give people the information around, why sometimes it's risky to test, or even a positive test might be more complicated than that, or why it's impractical for some people at such scale to test, and that there's other ways that maybe the customer can test. And if it's the animal's positive, then there's potential recourse for the customer.
Mhm.
And maybe it's not and you let the breeder know. But and I mean, I don't think anything precludes people from testing, but it's just,
Yeah.
it really made me frustrated, because here's somebody who clearly, and nobody's saying that nobody in that whole argument or discussion around testing was saying that we shouldn't test.
Yeah.
Nobody said that.
The whole
But
policy was to test, right? Or
yeah,
to allow people to test if they
if
wanted
you were
to.
listening to the podcast that I'm talking about, and I'm not even going to mention who it was, because I'm not going to give them the credit that
Mhm.
they were trying to get out of it, because it was so ridiculous what they were doing. And I look at that as a sketchy business practice of itself.
Yeah. Now, I tried to listen to that. I didn't make it too far through, but I will say that I mean he had some people who agreed with him. Obviously, they had him on their podcast, and they were all in, and I didn't really agree with the things they were saying. A lot of things are like, what are you talking about? But you know that
It was
those
it
kind
was
of
just paint with a very broad brush,
yeah, yeah, oh yeah. All right. Well,
finger painting with a
I'm
very broad
I'm
brush.
gonna give
Like,
Chuck a minute to calm down, take some deep breaths. He's coming in hot here, but that's good. I mean, I agree. Like taking personal snipes is kind of a risky and sketchy business practice, but I mean, it gets you attention.
yeah.
People know your name if you're having beef with somebody, and beefs in the reptile industry are as old as sketchy business practices in the reptile industry. Like it
Well,
seems like that some people have built their business model on that concept. I saw I Ralph Davis comes to mind, and I don't even know if he's breeding snakes anymore, if he's doing much anymore in the reptile industry. I looked at his website today, and it was like the most recent thing was from like 2017 or 2014 or something. So I don't think he's breeding snakes actively. If he's not updating his website. But anyway,
right.
he was one of those guys that was just so bold, and so like he'd call people out or say stuff about people, and people would like be upset, and he'd get his but he had this loyal following. Now it kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. I wasn't really excited about his type of business modeling. I mean, he'd get kind of like selling Ralph Davis brand underwear, like his logo on like
Was there a skid mark in it?
No, no, it was like women's underwear, like,
Oh,
you know, like
whoa.
the yeah, kind of like lacy, thong
Whatever,
underwear or something. But
whatever he's into.
yeah, it's like, okay, I would never put my logo on thong underwear and try to sell it, so he kind of had that rough, tough guy, like
Yeah.
getting chicks and
Clearly
selling snakes
clearly
and
a
yeah,
ladies man. Yeah,
exactly.
clearly a
So,
ladies man.
that kind of, that and it was not my cup of tea, but there were a lot of people that loved Ralph Davis and swore by him and were loyal customers because of his bad boy, persona. And I think, some people, the any press is good press crowd, like they can make a business out of that. And I'm not saying that it's the best way to go, or that they're not going to have repercussions down the road. And some people might get the crap kicked out of them, like if they kind of keep up that attitude or call out the wrong person, they might get pummeled at the next reptile show. And there have been, I don't know, there's some and I think, as American, a lot of Americans like that kind of stuff. They
Absolutely.
like the entertain me and the Spartacus attitude or whatever. They want to just watch people pummel each other, which is MMA is really big around here in in the U.S. So, but it works. He sold a lot of snakes and had a lot of customers, and they were loyal. And so, you can say, oh, this is sketchy and he's a bad person or whatever, but it worked for his business practice. So, sketchy or not, it had results. So,
Sure.
this
Well,
guy,
and hey, man,
lambasting Travis. I mean, yeah, that's kind of a douche move, and trying to call into question. I mean, I've got a PhD, and I'm sure Travis would agree with me. Having a PhD doesn't necessarily mean you know everything and you can do it, but it does prove that you've put in the work and you know how to think and you know how to reason and do research and things like that. And so, some of that might not be necessarily, you know,
well, and but to marginalize him by
yeah, because of
completely
he's yeah.
misrepresenting what he said
Mhm.
is it's and look, we're in the age of, if you don't like what somebody's saying, you just make up your own truth and you pull a what this dude did, and you just march on, and like when somebody's basically giving you reasons that are, nobody's saying you can't test. There's nobody's taking away anyone's personal right to test. there's
Mhm.
there's tests out there. If you want to test. But the idea that there is no reasonable barriers to
Mhm.
testing. There's and if you get, you can, if you get the right test, you can test for all kinds of things. I'm sure we could figure out that all these animals have all kinds of stuff going on. We just
Mhm.
don't have the right test for it, right?
Yeah.
And if we
Oh,
did
yeah.
have the right test, and the animal was completely healthy, what would you do? I mean,
Yeah.
what would you do? Like,
Well,
these
and that's the
animals can,
thing.
I mean, so, like, to just ignore that and be
Mhm.
like, well, a positive test is a positive test. Like, yeah, I get that. But, you can still test positive for COVID and not be contagious at all. You can still, like, there's a myriad of things that can happen, that a positive test, doesn't necessarily mean that you're spreading sickness all the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
or that positive test results in sickness.
Exactly. I mean, there's so many different things that can be harbored within an animal that don't cause any issues for the animal, unless maybe they get in a stressful situation or something like that. And I
And
don't
to
know.
have that knowledge, cool, good.
Yeah.
But to
Yeah.
say, like, this
If you don't
person is a
test, then
horrible person
yeah.
if they don't advocate for all testing all the time, and a positive result is should be equated with, this animal being on that blacklist almost of got the Nido, done, out, forget it. No,
Yeah.
no, there's nothing past that, because there is, I mean, and look, if it's symptomatic with disease, that's a totally different story. But that's not what was represented, and that's
Yeah.
not what was talked about. So it's like, again, I'm getting wound up, and I'm sorry, but it's sketchy. It's sketchy. It's
Yeah.
shitty business practice, right? And whether that's part of his shtick to sell animals or not, like that's not what you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I call it a business practice, but it's the same. It's the same thing. It's to me like the people who will say, oh, that animal's not pure, it's an integrate, or it's this or that. That's shitty too. That's
Mhm.
shitty too, because now those animals are throwaway just because you devalued it based on the way you have this mental construction of how value is within an artificial construct called taxonomy, right?
Yeah,
It's
that's
fucking
right.
dumb. It's
Yeah.
fucked up.
It is a little sketchy there, but I mean it works, right? And I guess my biggest probably point of this is any business can an unsketchy business succeed? It's really hard in a lot of ways for a honest, forthright business to succeed, especially when people are coming at them with sketchy things, and a lot of times it kind of scares away or pushes out the unsketchy folks in the industry. They're like, I don't want any part of this is ridiculous. This
Right.
guy's trashing me because I have a PhD, or calling into question my credentials because he doesn't agree with what I'm saying, or he's twisting my words to make it be something I'm not saying. And why do we want to act like that? I agree, but business is in a lot of ways sketchy from the get-go. I mean, Nike's based on little kids sewing shoes in third
But
world
but
countries,
that's
It's like,
bullshit. But that's bullshit because Nike did that. It's not just it's so business practice isn't inherently sketchy. It's made sketchy by the way we construct our society, by the choices we make, and by the things that we allow as okay to happen. It's
yeah,
okay for you to call everything fake news when you don't like what it's saying, or say like, oh, nobody knows what they're talking about because we get new information and things change, and see, they don't know from here to now what it is, so it's all fake and I don't have to listen to it, and I can just make up my own thing about what I want it to be. So there, take that, world. And
yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah.
just yes, you're right. You're 100% right, Justin. But it's still wrong to behave that way because of all the bullshit that comes out of it, and we never go to a positive place, and we're stuck in this intractable mess.
Yeah, I
And,
mean,
and
obviously you can have a successful business and not be sketchy. And I think,
100%,
Justin
100%.
Kabilka is probably a great example of that.
Yeah.
He's
And
built a
Frank
very
Payne, and
nice,
I mean, the
straightforward,
list goes
honest.
on and on and
Yeah,
on.
sure.
There's tons of people who do, but at the same time, there's also those people who will say like, well, you know what? I got this and it was sick, so you're a horrible person, and that's it. You're
Mhm.
done. And
Yeah.
to no fault of your own, like,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
like
Oh,
I
I've
get
had
it.
that
Maybe if
happen where
yeah,
somebody
I mean,
called into question the animals that I sent him, and I'm like, "Send them back.
yeah.
I'm not worried about them," and they were just fine. They went on to, new homes, and the people that have them now are very happy with them. They're great animals. Like, there was nothing wrong with them.
But
I
there's
don't know.
somebody out there
Yeah.
running around talking about that Justin piece of shit guy from
Yeah.
AAR,
That's fine.
and
I mean,
it's total crap. Because why? Because I don't know, they didn't like it, or they were an
yeah.
idiot and didn't understand what they were looking at, or I don't know. I don't know what motivates these people, but to me, that it's the same shit. You know what I mean? When you only want to hear what you want to hear and only push your side of the agenda, and you're not willing to listen to reason about topics that are more complex than you're willing to accept. It's bullshit.
Yeah. And I guess you could one thing that maybe I don't enjoy, or that I don't like, maybe somebody else really likes, and so maybe it's sketchy from my point of view, and from somebody else is like, no, that's cool. I like that. I want to
Well,
see
give me
that
an
in my,
example.
like Ralph Davis, like I saw it as sketchy, like, oh, he's, slinging women's underwear, and, calling people out to fight, and maybe those people deserve to be called out. I don't know. Maybe they should get a, a beating or something. I don't know. But to me, it was kind of a sketchy thing. But to all of his customers and followers that really liked him, they're probably like, no, it's cool. That I like that. I want to see that
Sure.
in my,
Oh,
the
he
guy I'm
keeps it
gonna buy
real. He
animals
doesn't
from.
take any
Yeah,
crap. But
exactly.
but when, Fish and Wildlife is looking at us and they're like, well, maybe we need to do something about these reptile folks, then people who are acting a fool don't help us one bit. Not
Sure.
one
Yeah.
goddamn bit. I
Yeah.
mean, if you saw a US Ark running around acting like that, we would not be doing so hot.
Well, yeah, and I mean, Hank Molt's the reason we don't have a good, relationship with zoos or certain
Right.
zoos,
Point
things like
made,
that. So,
right?
yeah.
That's my
Eh,
point.
I mean, obviously, just because one person in an industry is sketchy doesn't make the whole thing sketchy. But
No, for
I mean,
sure.
to be fair, we have probably more than our fair share of sketchy
We definitely
characters.
do.
There's still people out there that are selling, half dead animals and like, you know, animals dying en masse in their facilities, and
Uh,
they continue.
and
They continue to be.
and it
I
sucks
don't.
that exotic animals
Yeah,
are rife with this
but
problem.
but
Like it's
they're still making money. They're
of
still
course.
having a
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, like I said, yeah, you can call it sketchy all day and you can hate it, and it can be a black eye to us, but it's working for them. They're still making money and they're still
Sure.
slinging animals or whatever. But
Well, but but
we
but
shouldn't
but the
necessarily
problem but the
put up with
problem
that.
but the
But
problem is all it takes is, the winds of change to blow the other direction, and then all of a sudden it all comes to a crashing halt very expeditiously when the opportunity arises. And so, it's one of those things where you can just ignore it and ignore it and ignore it and act like it's not well, it works and it's a business model, and what are you going to do? It's America. You can't, and that's fine. You're right. And it is, and it could go on for a really long time, but
mhm.
at some point that something may happen, and it may involve somebody who did some shady shit, and that is the catalyst for a whole state losing its ability to keep reptiles.
Yeah.
Not so freaking
Yeah, I
far
mean, it
fetched
could
from
be.
happening,
No,
right?
but I mean, it's happened certain places, but for the most
Sure,
part,
it's happened all over the
sometimes
place.
they loosen those up again. I mean, our regulations in this state have kind of settled down a bit compared to what they used to be. And and just because somebody was engaged in sketchy behavior in the past doesn't mean they can't change and become, have a better business plan. I mean,
Sure.
there's several examples of that where people were, filmed being cruel to animals or kind of having a pretty crappy attitude about things, who are now, building
Fine,
zoos and,
outstanding individuals. I
exactly
get it. I get
doing
it.
a
I
lot of
get
good
it.
for the
And
industry.
look,
So
I'm not look
hopefully they learn their
what I'm
lessons.
saying, and I'm definitely not saying that nobody deserves the second chance or that nobody makes mistakes. I'm just saying that, that shady business practice or that shitty way of behaving around reptiles, and denying science and facts, and being dogmatic and bullheaded about things does not serve us well. It
Yeah,
does
I
not.
mean, and people vote with their dollar. So if they
Sure.
like it, if it's working, then they'll support him. I mean, reading Stolen World, reading about Hank Molt's exploits and how he screwed over some close associates, like the people
Sure.
that are funding his journeys, and he just left them with the bill and just screwed them over. And then they did business with him down the road. It's like, I mean, are we that desperate for these animals? I mean, really? So yeah, something's rare, but there's so many cool reptiles that are not rare and that are not expensive and that we can get from good upstanding people. Do we really need to be supporting the Hank Moltz? Probably not. And it's
No.
probably, we need to kind of vote with our dollar and think about where the animals are coming from and what's going on. Unfortunately, the majority of, educated reptile keepers, if you want to call them that, um, I mean, there's so many more people that don't have any concept of how reptiles come in the country. All they know reptiles from is like PetSmart. They go in and they see the chameleon or the corn snake. And granted, most of the stuff in PetSmart is probably sourced okay, or maybe even captive bred within the United States, as far as like ball pythons, and maybe they're catching chameleons out of Florida and getting rid of an invasive species there or something. So, to some extent, it's like, well, what do you do? Other things, like, obviously, a lot of the imports and stuff, that's we've talked about that too. There's pros and cons to importing and exporting things, and so
But there's also a right way and a sketchy way to do it. Like it's,
sure,
I
yeah,
mean, I think it's important to separate out the act from the intention, or the act
yeah,
from the methodology or the behavior within that act, right? Like I don't have any problem with smuggling if it gets an animal that we would not be able to establish because a government is being stupid about the way that they're handling their laws. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is somebody who just stuffs their entire suitcase in their body, and they're bringing in all these animals, and they're not caring about the welfare of the animal, and they're pilfering rather than bringing in just what they need to establish, and never disturbing that animal's habitat ever again, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that there's a difference, and it's that intention that's the sketchiness, not importation, not having an opinion about things. Like it's the way you use that intention, that opinion, and the way you intention it is the problem for me.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously, I don't like shady practices, and I try not to employ them in my business, and kind of a big reason I didn't do this as a full time job is because I wanted to enjoy it as a hobby. I didn't want pressure to sell snakes,
Yeah.
to make money to feed my family. That
Hmm.
wasn't something I was interested in. And I'm very happy with the job I have, and the collection I have, and the time that I can spend with the reptiles, and things like that. So, sometimes I think, oh, it would have been cool to go full time, but at other times I'm like, man, sure is nice not to have to worry about selling snakes to make the rent or whatever. So, there's but these things go on, and we need to be aware of them, and we need to understand how it can negatively impact the hobby. I mean, yeah,
Hmm.
it might work for you in the short term, and I'm probably kind of summing up with siding with you a little bit, which angers all our listeners, right? Because we're not fighting properly.
I
But
tried
anyway,
to I tried to be as
it's
feisty as I could with this, so
it's
I
hard to
certainly have strong feelings about it.
no, oh yeah, I mean, and it's it's justified to a large extent, and I guess you need to make sure that you're not judging somebody's business practices as shady when they're just shady to you, and
Hmm.
maybe they could be just fine to somebody else. But if you're I mean, obviously, if you're screwing people over and stealing their money and not giving them the animals you promised, and that kind of thing, or running their name through the mud just because
Yeah,
you don't
I mean,
agree
if
with
you're going
what
to
they're
challenge
saying.
what somebody
Yeah,
says, at least accurately represent what they're saying,
exactly.
right?
And
You can't
or
can't
give
push
them
your
the chance to go toe to toe with you or something,
sure,
that kind of thing.
sure.
But, you know, it there are reasonable ways to do this, and still, maybe appear sketchy to somebody else, but, you're doing it legitimately, or it's okay. That make any sense?
Yeah.
I just yeah.
No, it did. I mean, I understand. Yeah, I understand. I think for me, it's important for anyone listening to understand that a shady business practice or a shitty business practice isn't just as simple as like that out front, easy to see, like, that guy's abusing animals. That's a shitty business practice. Like that we need to start thinking about how misrepresenting things and ignoring science, ignoring the some of the best stuff that has happened to reptiles, especially around virus testing, and what we know around these viruses more than ever. And if you're going to just ignore the facts that are around that, the virology of what we know about snake viruses, you're not doing a service, and that is shady too. That is sketchy too, and we need to look at it that way. And I don't, I mean, certainly, I'm not saying that that it is a level playing field of sketchiness, and there's certainly some minutia in there, but I don't want people to just think that it's people who do bad things like smuggling or animal abuse or things like that are the only type of sketchy shit that we have going on in the hobby.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's good to identify sketchiness in all its forms, and
I
yeah.
see
Oh,
you.
hopefully, yeah, everybody listening has gotten some, something to think about as far as business practices in the reptile industry. And there's probably a lot of stuff we didn't cover. If something comes to mind, you want to chat about it more, come fight us. Get your ideas out there, and come on. I've really appreciated the feedback that we've been getting. Some of the it's been overall pretty positive. We've had a few kind of critiques that maybe say some of the things we're not we need to maybe improve on, and we
Who
appreciate
said
those as
what?
well.
Who said what?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna send Chuck to your house and he'll say, uh,
We'll
but
fight.
anyway, thanks for listening, and hopefully you got something good out of this. That's what we're here for. I hope to give you both sides and let you see. um shout out to Morelia Python's network. I've had some good shows on recently. Chuck, of course, will be on here soon, and we'll be on the Morelia Python's radio coming up soon, probably this next week, right?
I would say it's
Or
coming up pretty
within
soon.
a
I don't
couple
know. I
weeks.
think they were boning up on some shows, so I don't.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
100%
I
sure.
think they were recording right before this one, but
Yeah.
a lot of great content. I really enjoyed the interview with Billy Hunt. That was a lot of fun to listen to. Billy's a great guy. We got to have him on here. Did I already mention that this earlier or no? Can't
I
remember if I
don't.
just mentioned it to you, but
I don't know
anyway,
what's happening.
Billy's so cool. He gets 2 shout outs if we did,
There
did
you
it earlier in
go.
the show, but um,
Damn the
yeah,
twofer.
that was interesting to listen to, and fun to listen to. I also was listening to, um, I think it was Snakes and Stogies. Now, this is of course not in the NPR network, but we're pretty good friends with the folks at
Yes,
the Herpetoculture network, and
we cross deck with other
oh yeah, yeah,
podcasts. So
they're good guys, and we're actually gonna have Phil Wolf on here
yeah,
next week. So
feel,
Phil Wolf
feel.
of Wheeler Eye. Yeah, so he's a great guy, very knowledgeable. So that'll be fun to have him on. But there's just so much great content on Morelia Python Radio Network. So check them out at moreliapythonradio.com. If you want to email them, get in contact, info@moreliapython.com. Sorry, info@moreliapythonradio.com. That's a mouthful.
It's tough to
But
say.
that works.
I'll give you better.
Yeah.
Yeah, well
And
done.
follow the network and Morelia Python Radio on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, etc. So, and it's all at MPR Network. So this has been another edition of Reptile Fight Club. And I don't know, you got anything else to say to the people? You got any words of wisdom, good content out there? You heard anything good, or are we wrapping up here? What do you think?
Justin and I love you all. Don't be sketchy bastards, and we'll see you next week.
I like it. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you later.
Bye.
Fight Club.